In this video, we're gonna get vulnerable and talk about what it's really been like behind the scenes. We're gonna share about our struggles with depression, our feelings of being stuck. We're gonna share about how we have to cancel our plans again, and ultimately our decision to go home.
Welcome back to the RV Odd Couple. My name is John.
And I'm Mercedes, and we RV pursuing freedom, independence, and adventure.
Because life is so short, guys.
It is, but we've gotten another curveball. And so we need to tell you guys what's been going on behind the scenes.
It's important that you have a solid plan, but it's also important to have contingency, backup plans, right? Because it's never gonna go quite the way you think it is. You know, we plan, God laughs. We never imagined that when we got here in December, after traveling around the country, 14,000 miles, our first year, we had no idea that when we got back, our pediatrician would tell us that our daughter had autism or was on the spectrum. We were devastated. We wanted to do whatever it took to give Sage the attention and get her the help that she needed, so that became number one. We'd resigned ourselves to stay still for as long as it took at that point, and we've been in the same location now for 8 months, heading towards 9 months, and it's time to go.
Upon getting the news that we had to stay put, we made certain plans, right? It's like our RV sprung roots,
right.
and we started digging in. So we made plans like the RV Palooza in September. We made plans, you know, to get things in the mail since we were going to be stationary for so long. What's the big deal, right? We're making all these plans and unknowingly planting these seeds that are growing roots and tying us to this location, not knowing that things could change for us yet again.
Right. So our whole life became wrapped around Tuesday through Friday, 25-minute drive each way to get Sage speech therapy and occupational therapy.
But there was a beauty in that struggle because we started listening to music together, and the music really opened her up. And, you know, little things like Turn the Page from Bob Seger. Sage calls that song Flamingo. And I'm guessing Here I Go, Flamingo. Redeemer, she calls that Ostrich. I don't know why she calls that Ostrich. God's Country, she calls it Dirt.
What's beautiful though is Sage picked our music, and it kind of became our routine every single morning, and we did this for 5 months, right? We jump in the truck, Sage would have control of the radio, she'd come up with these beautiful songs that she just loved, and what's really interesting is Sage started singing before she started talking.
And we were acquiring this sense of stability. Dun dun dun. And here's where it kind of changes. So we get the fantastic news that we can start traveling. You see, we thought that autism meant that you need to do everything exactly the same every single day.
Right.
And what we're learning is that it's in fact the opposite. You need to change things up so that your child can deal with life as it really is and really deal with those fluid situations.
And one of the amazing things about being on the spectrum is no kid is exactly the same.
Yeah.
And once the therapist, the team that we built for Sage, got to know her, they were able to kind of get to see how fast we were growing, what was going on, and ultimately we had no idea that they were going to come to us one day and say, you guys, it's time. We've taken as far as we can go right now. It's time for you guys to take off again, which was a big day for us. We were super, super excited about it that we could finally move on again.
Yeah, because actually the traveling is beneficial for her because it challenges her to deal with different situations every day. But what should have been a situation that was a cause of a lot of joy, celebration, happiness, it actually ended up being one of the hardest things that we've had to deal with, not just as a family, but also in our marriage.
Exactly. Even though we both celebrated that it was time to move on, there's a pandemic out there, and we do things differently. I wanted to immediately pack up and go. I wanted to know where we're going next. Mercedes had actually grown a little bit of roots with the RV being in one location for 8 months, right? Mama had built her nest. She wasn't as ready to move as quickly as I was, and so that caused a lot of tension in the marriage. We've dealt with a lot of depression. We've dealt with a lot of lack of communication. We can't communicate what it is we want with each other, and a lot of misunderstanding. So what we thought was a beautiful thing has turned into be probably one of the most difficult challenges on our marriage.
A divisive
that
force
we've ever faced.
Yeah, it's totally divisive. That we both want the same thing, but we see different ways of achieving that.
Right.
And given all of the uncertainty with the pandemic, I am not as willing to move as willy-nilly as he is. And every time he tries to push me,
she sits down tighter.
I do. And then he tries to push more. It's gotten to the point where we were like, what are we doing? Because you watch us on YouTube and you see a video that we make, but if we're really struggling behind the scenes, we want to be authentic, but at the same time, we have to protect our marriage. And we love the RV Odd Squad. We rely on you guys, but we've had to come clean almost with you guys that it's been hard behind the scenes.
It's been pretty brutal, and it got to a point where the miscommunication was so bad that every time I thought it was our last therapy session, Mercedes would make one more.
That's not fair to say. No, it's not that I would make one more. It's that things would come up because I didn't want to. Okay, the people that have been providing therapy for Sage have become like her best friends.
Our family members.
And I don't feel comfortable ripping that away from her willy-nilly with given what she can understand of what's happening.
And I don't want to rip anything away from her willy-nilly either.
And so they talked about preparing her and like explaining to her what's going to happen because she does thrive better when she knows something is happening. And besides, we had planted so many roots anyways that it's not like we could really move.
Right. The one thing Mercedes and I obviously have in common, the same as most parents, is that Sage is the most important thing in our lives. And we're willing to do whatever it takes. We were actually willing to walk away from RVing, and we went out and looked at property.
Yeah.
Because, we assumed that if we're going to be here at Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital, then maybe we should dig in. We're open-minded to everything, and Sage is number one. But the way that it unfolded is that I was ready to let go and move on. And Mercedes had a lot of questions that were unanswered. Is that fair?
Totally fair.
Right. And so what should have been an incredible day of celebration, it was. We were both super excited. We announced out loud, hey, we get to move on again. That's when our problems actually started.
Yeah, and looking back, one of the things that we had talked about was getting a smaller RV while we were stationary so then we could dart off quickly.
We thought we had found a solution when we had rented a van. We said, okay, our RV is going to become our sticks and bricks. Let's get a smaller RV so that we can continue to go out and explore. And the adventure piece of RVing is the piece we miss the most.
Yeah, we definitely do. So looking back, I can see okay, again, thank you, God, for protecting me from myself. I'm very grateful for that.
And I think the bigger point here is that we've been isolated out here. All we've had is the RV Odd Squad. You guys have gotten us through some really hard days. But we missed our family.
Yeah.
Seeing our family as we travel around America was a big part.
I miss my mom so much.
Of our adventure. We were really looking forward to seeing family all over the United States. And we haven't seen them in a really long time. So thank God for the RV Odd Squad because you guys have been our family on the road.
Yeah.
But we miss Mom, Dad, kids, family. We miss them so much that it's been an extremely big struggle.
I think one of the things when you full-time RV, especially if you have family all over the U.S., that it's really hard to say goodbye. But if you're going to see another family member in another state, then it's a lot easier. So you're like, oh man, this stinks. I have to say goodbye to my sister, but I get to see my brother, or, and then it offsets the pain of saying goodbye to one person because you're going to say hi to someone else. So we know we're not the only ones that have been dealing with this, but I think I did a really bad job of talking to my friends. You know what I mean? Because there is a piece too that when you're having fights in your marriage, you really shouldn't. It's bad form when you're angry at your spouse to call your friend and be like, he's a poop head, You know what I mean? You shouldn't be talking bad about. So finding that place where you can navigate it, talk about it, but get help is really hard.
No, I think the bottom line is that everything we've done in our lives over the past 9 months has been focused around Sage and getting her the treatment that she needs.
And we're not taking care of ourselves.
We're not taking care of ourselves. Travel is not easy for our other family members. They can't just jump on a plane and fly in with the pandemic going on.
We don't
want them putting themselves at risk. But we have family all over the country, and we really miss those relationships.
Bad. Miss them really bad. I think another big thing, too, that I was struggling with is that John sees a plan and he's like, let's get on a rocket ship and fly to Pluto. And I think about how many nuts and bolts are required to build said rocket ship.
Yeah, Mercedes needs to put together a spreadsheet and a very clear plan of what the steps are to get there.
Yeah.
I'm more trust God, let's go.
And so while he was getting excited thinking about the places we could go, I was thinking about all the routes, everything that we had dug in.
It's amazing when you start to set routes again, even if you're in an RV, you start to acquire more crap.
We need to move. It's crystal clear to us.
I don't know if you guys remember, but just a couple of weeks ago, we were getting a threat of a hurricane coming across. So around that same time period, I was setting up the rig to move. I dumped everything. I'm bringing stuff to Goodwill again. We're downsizing again, getting ready to go. But yet Mercedes was pushing back because she had a lot of untied things that you wanted to take care of that I didn't think we needed to.
Yeah, which it's very good when I challenge John, because iron sharpens iron. And one of the worst things that we can do, which we've been doing for the last month, is say, fine, have it your way.
Right.
Anytime I tell him, fine, have it your way,
You're
he
gonna
hasn't
be resentful.
really won. And when he tells me, fine, you decide, I haven't really won either.
And I'll have a resentment.
Well, I'm resentful when you tell me, fine, you pick, because I know it's a cop-out. Right. We have to have the difficult conversations.
To meet in the middle.
I think the other really challenging thing is, do we go west of the Mississippi or stay east of the Mississippi? Because that, in and of itself, determines so many things.
Right. And you guys know I'm a prepper. And so I'm ready to move it at a moment's notice. I am ready to go at any point. And
whether or not he should.
Whether or not we should, right. So I'm just ready to go. And I've got a plan to get away from heavy populated areas. And so I knew what my plan was. It was just a lot. It was very difficult for me to convince Mercedes to jump on my plan with me and trust that we were going the right way.
Well, especially when I don't feel heard. Because I don't mind if he changes my opinion, if he can argue. Like, if you... No. Lincoln Douglas debate, the number one thing you do to disarm your opponent is you admit where they are right.
Right.
It's the most disarming thing you can do. And I need to hear, okay, Mercedes, you have a good point because of this, this, and this. And not just, that's crazy. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
So, like, when I'm like, but Sage will miss her friends. And you're like, she'll be fine.
She'll be fine. She'll make new friends.
Not the right thing to say to me because you haven't acknowledged my concerns.
Yeah, it's been a struggle.
It has. It has. I think another big fear, though, and you might be able to relate to this too, is that the longer you stay stationary in an RV, the more scary moving becomes. It's
weird. We're not used to RVing, guys. We've been in the same location for 8 months. We kind of forgot how to RV, so I'm nervous about everything. I'm double checking everything, getting the rig ready. We have not moved since January from the Tampa RV show. We have not moved our rig. So there's a lot of work to do, and I've almost got to teach myself how to drive again. And I'm hoping to teach Mercedes how to drive the rig on this trip.
Yeah, I'm so nervous. It's like we're newbies all over again. I really feel like I've forgotten everything that I knew.
We didn't sell all our stuff to sit in one location.
It's hard talking about your struggles when you're actively still facing them. So we don't know exactly where we're going or when we're going. But we know we're going, and we're going soon. So in our next video, we're not sure what's going to be happening, but we know that you'll be right there alongside us, and we are so grateful for your love and support.
And prayers.